sometimes in teaching and learning you have to start with the end in mind. So I'm going to give you the whole output of Chelladurai multidimensional model of leadership all in one go. And that idea is that leaders must be adaptable. So I want you to keep that in mind at all times as we go through this model. And you're probably going to think, wow, James, is this never going to get to the end? This model is a bit complex. But actually, at the heart of it, that is ultimately what we need to take out as a reflection of what I'm going to show you. Now, with that in mind, let me shock you by immediately introducing you to Cheladurai's model. I think I'm just going to shufty it a little bit to the right here. Just bear with me as I sort of bring this into the open. Here we go. That's a little bit better positioned. So what I'm going to do first is I want to talk to you about this model. I'm going to take you step by step. I'd initially like to talk to you about the situation, and I'd like to explain to you what Chelladurai meant by the situation. The situation, in terms of this sort of sporting context here, is the nature of that situation. Now, that nature could be something like the size of the group that the leader is working with. You know, is it a group of one individual athlete, or is it a group of 40 children doing javelin throwing? That makes a difference. What about things such as the potential danger of the environment? That might make a difference into how the leader might go about their leadership. What is the training history of the performers that the leader is working with? Is it extensive? Is it the first time they've done activity in 10 years? And what about their recent results? This is what we would describe as the situation. Now, what's really important here is that the situation largely determines what type of behaviour is required for the situation. So I want to stress here that the behaviour now of the situation brings about a required behaviour from the leader. So this would suggest that the leader has to behave in a leadership style which is relevant to the situation they're in. So, for example, the situation demands either autocracy or democracy. So, for example, let me give you one where autocracy would be required. Let's say we were working with a relatively small group of experienced female athletes in a non-dangerous activity. We tend to find that females tend to prefer a democratic style of leadership. The required behaviour in that situation would be democracy. Let's say a PE teacher, as I mentioned before, is teaching 30 kids to throw a full-size javelin for the 800-gram javelin for the first time. That is going to require autocracy because there's real danger and group size problems to that particular environment. So can you see how the situation leads to a required behaviour? So the leader has to be sensitive to that. Let's take it further, because we've now also got what we describe as the member characteristics, or the members. It's nice to refer to it as member characteristics here. So this is effectively who we're guiding. So this is the nature of the performers, not literally, but who are they? What are their experiences? What will they ultimately prefer from their leaders? Okay, this could be to do with age. I've mentioned already gender. I've mentioned age as well. It could be to do with experience. These members here are going to have a certain preference for how the leader behaves. But don't be fooled. The members also understand what the situation is, and they were also going to expect a required behaviour as well. But based on the member characteristics, and I've given a couple of examples already, just trying to find my scroll bar, we would now have what's called a preferred behaviour. Okay, I struggle with the spelling of preferred behaviour. So the members themselves, let's call them the athletes, the members themselves have a preference. Now this would be, for example, members preferring, so the players, the participants, members prefer either autocracy or democracy. So it may well be that you're working with elite athletes and they are very comfortable with an autocratic coach telling them what to do because their confidence is already established, for example. Whereas in other circumstances, it may well be that the members prefer a democratic situation. I mentioned females as an example of that. Males on the whole tend to prefer autocracy. Females on the whole, millions of exceptions, tend to lean towards a democratic preference. So we can also already ask the question, does the required behaviour and the preferred behaviour match? What if it doesn't match? What does that mean about the adaptability of the leader themselves? Now I'm going to go a touch further, because now we're going to talk about the leader. So the leader themselves, let's imagine you're a coach, a manager, a teacher, whatever it happens to be. The leader, of course, and that's this part here, they also have their own preferred style. Okay, they might have had lots of success in the past from an autocratic methodology, for example. And this is their experience. So of course, if they are going to have had lots of experience with autocracy, but the required behaviour is democracy and the preferred behaviour is democracy, they have to show adaptability. That comes back to the original point. And the point I want to make here is the idea that the actual behaviour, this is a product of a couple of things. It's what the leader does. So it's what the leader does. So actually what style of leadership they actually go for. But of course, it's strongly affected, so strongly influenced by the leader. Exactly what I just wrote before, what their experiences are, what their previous success have been. But notice here that yes, the leader behaviour leads to actual behaviour, but notice the nature of the members influences it. So is this, the required behaviour influences it, the preferred behaviour influences. Now this is where it gets really interesting in my opinion. I know you may not agree with me. I want to introduce to you the notion of accord. Okay, not a lined pair of trousers, or what we might refer to as consonance. Now let me quickly illustrate this before I write it out for you. Accord is when all three of these antecedents actually agree with one another. So if the situation is dangerous and that requires autocracy, if the members are, let's say, male and well established and they prefer autocracy, and the leaders had previous success with autocracy, the likely situation is that they're going to have, they'll have accordance with all of those different elements of the model, and therefore they're going to produce autocracy. And this will lead to satisfaction and performance levels going up. So we get good satisfaction and performance levels from the group. Now, it doesn't matter if that's autocracy or democracy. That's not the important point. The point is if those three elements of the model actually meet one another. But we also have the notion of discord. We also have the notion of dissonance. These are effectively synonymous or interchangeable terms. And this occurs when in this Chelladurai model, it could be that the required behaviour of the situation is democracy because of the nature of the situation, for example. The preferred behaviour by the members is democracy, but the leader sticks with autocracy because that's their previous historical success. This is going to cause problems. And in this situation, it's going to cause dissonance, and we're going to get a reduction in performance and satisfaction. And this might explain sometimes where a leader doesn't endure or last in a role because they don't show that adaptability. So can I stress to you, what are leaders at the heart of things? Leaders at the heart of things are adaptable, and that is ultimately what Cheladurai's model tells us. Thank you.